History books make it sound so clean. Dates, names, battles. But the truth? Some parts of history are straight-up nightmare fuel. Like the time hundreds of people literally danced themselves to death. Or when families used to take cheerful portraits with their dead relatives propped up in chairs. And that's just scratching the surface. Because tonight, we're diving into the creepiest, darkest facts that history tried to brush under the rug. Stick around. Some of these are so disturbing you'll wish they were just horror stories. But they're not. You know when a song gets stuck in your head and you just can't stop humming it? Now imagine that. But instead of humming, you're dancing non-stop for days until you literally drop dead. That's exactly what happened in Strasbourg, France, back in 1518. Started with just one woman, Frau Trophia. She walked into the street and began dancing. No music, no festival. Just wild, uncontrollable movements. People thought she was cursed, or maybe possessed. But then others joined. Within a week, dozens were dancing. Within a month, it was hundreds. They couldn't stop. Reports say many collapsed from exhaustion, some died of heart attacks or strokes, and others kept going until their bodies gave out. Historians still debate the cause. Some say ergot poisoning, a fungus in bread that can cause LSD-like hallucinations. Others blame mass hysteria triggered by famine and stress. Either way, hundreds of people literally danced themselves to death. Here is a quick question for you. If you were living back then, would you have thought it was a curse, or would you have joined the dance? Let me know in the comments. Now, that's terrifying enough. But while Strasbourg was dancing itself into the grave, another society, centuries later, was busy turning death into a family photo. In Victorian England, when someone died, families would hire a photographer to capture one last memory. And since photography was rare and expensive, sometimes it was the only photo they'd ever have of that person. The creepy part? The dead weren't laid down. They were dressed up, propped in chairs, eyes painted open, and posed with the rest of the family. At first glance, you wouldn't even know who was alive and who wasn't. Historians call this memento mori photography. It was meant to honor the dead, but to us today, it looks straight out of a horror movie. So here's a challenge. Would you ever want to see a picture like that of your ancestors? Or would you rather not know? Comment yes or no below. I'm curious what you think. And if you think that's disturbing, wait until you hear about the time crowds of people literally bought tickets to watch a human body being cut open. Like a night at the theater. Yep, this really happened. In the 1600s and 1700s, dissecting a body wasn't just medical research, it was a public spectacle. Doctors would perform autopsies in amphitheaters, while audiences gasped, cheered, or fainted. Vendors sold snacks, seats were booked in advance, and kids were sometimes brought along. The bodies often came from executed criminals, and while the dissections advanced science, they also scratched people's itch for morbid curiosity. Imagine sitting in a crowd, watching someone pull out a heart, while the audience reacts like it's a magic trick. Creepy, right? Do you think people were genuinely learning something here, or was it just morbid entertainment? Drop your take below. And just when you think human fascination with death couldn't get any darker, some ancient warriors went a step further. They didn't just kill their enemies, they turned their heads into wine glasses. The Scythians, nomadic warriors from around 400 BC, were not to be messed with. According to Herodotus, they would take the skulls of their defeated enemies, decorate them with leather or gold, and use them as drinking cups. It wasn't just brutality, it was intimidation. Imagine toasting victory from the hollowed-out skull of your rival. That's not just winning a battle, that's psychological warfare on another level. And while that image is already disturbing, history has one symbol that might be even creepier. A mask so terrifying, it became the face of one of history's deadliest plagues. Honest opinion, if you were in that era, do you think this was genius intimidation or just pure savagery? Comment genius or savage. You've seen the mask, the long beak, the black robes. It looks like something out of a horror video game, but it was very real. During the Black Death in the 1600s, plague doctors wore these beaked masks stuffed with herbs and spices, believing the bad air caused disease. They covered their entire bodies in waxed leather, carried sticks to poke or examine patients, and walked the streets like bird-like reapers. Imagine lying in bed, sick and terrified, and seeing that figure appear in your doorway. Of course, the outfit didn't work. Most plague doctors still died. But that image has stayed with us for centuries, a haunting reminder of how desperate people were in the face of the unknown. Which would freak you out more if you were sick, the idea of the plague itself or having a plague doctor in that mask leaning over you? Let me know. And speaking of desperation, sometimes survival meant making choices so harsh, they sound like horror legends, like abandoning your own family on a mountain to die. In Japanese folklore, there's a practice called abasut. The story goes like this. During times of famine, when food was scarce, families would carry their elderly relatives up a mountain and leave them there. It was seen as a sacrifice, the old giving up their lives so the young could survive. Whether it was common practice or more of a cautionary legend is still debated by historians. But the fact that it's so deeply ingrained in Japanese culture, retold in plays, films, and stories, shows just how real the fear of scarcity was. And honestly, that might be the creepiest part, because it forces us to imagine, if survival meant sacrificing the people we love most, what would we do? And that's a question for you too. If it was about life or death, do you think you could make a choice like that? Or would you fight to survive together? Tell me below, I really want to hear your take. Wow, we just went through some of the creepiest corners of history. People dancing themselves to death, Victorians posing with the dead, plague doctors in their nightmare masks, and even warriors turning skulls into drinking cups. And honestly, that's just scratching the surface. History is full of stories that are way stranger and scarier than anything in horror movies. So tell me in the comments, which one of these freaked you out the most? Was it the dancing plague? Or would you say the skull cups win the prize for nightmare fuel? If you enjoyed this ride through the dark side of history, hit that subscribe button, because the next video is even wilder. Here's a little teaser. Imagine a royal court where enemies weren't just executed. They were forced to drink molten gold. Or how about emperors who slept in rooms lined with corpses, believing it gave them power? Yeah, that's what's coming up. Trust me, you don't want to miss it.